Hey, what's up guys? Earnings madness continued this past week with Google announcing a first ever dividend after just recently announcing more layoffs the week before. But the stock soared, it's one of my favorites, so I'll share my thoughts. And then Microsoft, my number one largest holding, continues to dominate with even more progress on AI. I'll break it all down for you guys in this quick video. Let's jump into it. All right, so Google first. Now, just the week prior, they had announced even more layoffs and even moved some positions overseas, which is not a great look, especially since they had laid off another 1,000 in January and around 12,000 the year before, which, by the way, many of those workers have been worried for a while now that they could get replaced by artificial intelligence. Well, in this most recent round of layoffs, it's being reported that they're doing it in order to cut costs so that they can invest even heavier into, you guessed it, artificial intelligence. So yeah, there's probably some validity to those concerns. Anyway, the reason why it's all a little surprising is because Google was literally willing to pay billions of dollars in fees to conduct those thousands of layoffs, only to now announce a brand new dividend, which, guys, this has to remind you exactly of the same thing that happened with Meta, who also laid off, thousands of workers and then announced a brand new dividend too. It's pretty crazy how similar it is. Anyway, if you're wondering what this dividend will yield, well, it's supposed to be a 20-cent dividend. I'm guessing that's per quarter, and they said that they intend to pay it in the future too. So if we multiply that by 4 quarters, it would be 80 cents. And when compared to the current stock price, you're looking at a yield of just around 0.5%. So yeah, not very much at all there. Actually, I believe that's almost exactly the same yield that Meta had when they first announced a dividend too. So man, it's really strange how similar all of this is, just like Google doing it a little bit later, but very, very similar to Meta here. Anyway, unlike Meta, who actually fell on earnings this quarter, well, Google stock actually soared by around 15% at one point, with a beat on both the top and bottom line, with also huge gains on practically all their financials. Ad sales, for example, rose to almost 62 billion. That's up around 7 billion year over year. Operating income for Google Cloud more than quadrupled, which is a great sign for them because it shows that they're finally starting to reap the rewards of competing against their larger rivals in Amazon and Microsoft, who of course generate huge profits from their cloud businesses, but Google is now starting to compete heavier there. And all the meanwhile, they continue to invest further into artificial intelligence to improve both of those areas as well. By the way, this is the most staggering figure to me. Net income profit, it skyrocketed by 57% to almost $24 billion in just this one single quarter alone. How crazy is that? I think that might be the most profitable quarter for them ever. And as if paying a dividend wasn't enough, they even announced another $70 billion in share buybacks, with still over $100 billion in cash and equivalents on their balance sheet too. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible how strong this company is and how good their performance is right now. Obviously, sucks about the layoffs. That's a horrible part. I hate to see when anybody gets laid off. But in terms of just Google and how they're operating, I mean, dang, they're as strong as ever. And, just kind of looking at how much cash they have, I mean, it's kind of funny how everybody always talks about Apple having so much cash. Google has like almost the same amount. And in my opinion, Google is a much more diversified company. It's much better kind of stock to own, in my opinion. It's really my favorite. And yet they have a smaller market cap. I'm not saying to compare the two, by the way. They're both great stocks. I don't mean to make those comparisons. I just think that Google is one of the best out there, maybe the best in the entire market, and so I like to talk about them a lot. I know that it's up to a record high right now, but I just think that they deserve it, and I also think they deserve a position in just about anyone's portfolio out there at this point. Anyway, I really like Google, but let's move on to Microsoft stock. Okay, so Microsoft similarly had a very strong quarter. Now, Microsoft, in my opinion, always dominates on earnings. They always seem to put up incredible numbers. Every time I look up their financials, I'm always blown away by them. I do think that Wall Street was a little disappointed in this one, though. It had to do with guidance. That tends to happen. Microsoft doesn't shoot up a lot on earnings. A lot of times they kind of downplay guidance a little bit, and so the stock tends to not perform as well as others. And also, of course, Microsoft already pays a small dividend, so they couldn't like shock the market by announcing a brand new dividend like Google did. So you weren't going to see the stock take off like it did with Google. But still, just a very strong quarter in my opinion. especially pushing further into AI and cloud. But just look at some of these numbers here. Now, they beat on both the top and bottom line, sales skyrocketing by 17% year over year to almost $62 billion, with net income rising over $3 billion more, up to almost $22 billion in just a single quarter. I mean, it's so incredible how well they do. Now, much of that has to do with all the progress that they've made in AI. In fact, during the earnings call, management noted that their AI demand is so high, above their available capacity, that they're now having to increase their capital expenditures just to secure more NVIDIA GPUs for running all of their AI models. It's pretty crazy. It should be good news for NVIDIA shareholders too. And of course, I'm an NVIDIA shareholder as well, so I like to see that. Anyway, speaking of AI, remember all those times that I told you guys to keep an eye on Copilot because it's going to be a game changer for Microsoft? Well, yeah, that too is already showing huge promise. In fact, earlier this quarter, Microsoft announced new Surface PCs for business with dedicated Copilot buttons on them, as well as new premium subscriptions for businesses and individuals, especially in Office. Well, if you look at the entire breakdown of all their platforms and services, we had both Office Commercial and Windows Commercial rise by double-digit percentages, while everything else continues to outperform too, especially Azure. How impressive is this here? It continues to accelerate every single quarter, rising another 30% in the prior quarter and another 31% this past quarter too. This is already the second largest cloud in the world, guys, and it's growing at 30% plus. That's unbelievable. And then lastly, how many times have I told you guys that Microsoft is trying to be the Netflix of gaming with Xbox Game Pass? Well, Xbox revenue up over 60% in each of the past 2 quarters. That's really heating up now, guys. I'm telling you, Xbox is going to be big for them. Despite all these positives, though, the stock was a little rocky and only rose a couple percent this past week. Part of that is probably because it's already up so much as it is, but it also had to do with a little bit of weaker guidance there than analysts were expecting. It's not a very big concern for me, though. I care much more about profitability, and that forecast was still at a higher operating margin than analysts expected. So from my point of view, it's just kind of a foregone conclusion at this point that Microsoft will continue to dominate in many different areas of tech, especially in AI, in cloud, even in gaming too. I mean, I really have high hopes for all of these areas for Microsoft, and it's why I continue to hold it as my largest stock. By the way, that's my largest stock in my personal portfolio, my private one, but in the public community portfolio that we all kind of have a voice in, that we like to mess around with, Google is actually the largest stock in that one. So we actually covered both the 2 largest in the 2 portfolios, the private one and the community one. And by the way, I will have an update on our community portfolio this coming week. So make sure you look out for that video. That'll be fun. And yeah, like I said, Google is the largest one on that one. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. But anyway, thanks again for stopping by, my friends. I hope that you enjoyed just this really quick update on 2 of my absolute favorite stocks here. I love to talk about them, but I hope that you're all doing well out there. I hope you had a good earnings so far with this first quarter being reported here for any stocks you own. And if you have any thoughts, anything you want to share, drop it down there in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. But anyway, apart from that, I'll catch you in the next video. All right, take care, my friends. Bye-bye.